Hello. Hello. How are you all doing? It's like it doesn't matter how much I move this thing. There we go. A little better. All right. How are you? Hello, hello, hello. What's popping? What's popping? It is Monday. Y'all know how we do on Monday. Mondays can be a little slow, but here we are. It's good to see you all. What is up? Are y'all holding up okay? Ooh. Okay. I can't send to. Oh, wait. Hello. Hi, you lovely people. I am trying to multitask. Oh, I didn't turn on any music. I forgot about the music. Happy Monday. What's popping? How is it going for all y'all? Oh, Alyssa, thank you. Oh my God, the thing moved again. The banner. I'm back in my everlasting struggle with my banner placement. Here we go. You stay. You stay. Stay. How are you, Alyssa? Is it not today that you have your game thing? Not today? Am I remembering wrong? It feels so quiet. Why does it feel so quiet? Because normally I'm playing music, right? It feels so quiet. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's so dang quiet. Oh, my Lord. Oh, you're probably shifting into Saturdays. Nice. So we get to hang out with you every day. What? Oh. Well, let me put on some earrings. Today I put on earrings. I had an interview. I thought it went really well, but you never know, right? This interview process has been really fun. Maybe it's because I haven't been through one in a while, but I feel like they ask like some really, oh my God, I'm telling you, I'm fighting. They ask some really good questions. Like they try to dig deep into your answers and find out your motivations and stuff. So it was thrilling. Getting my brain to think a little bit faster on my feet. It was good. Hey Heather, how are you? I'm trying to get dolled up for all y'all. Do I remember a favorite question? This one didn't ask like a lot of, specific structured questions, but it was more about like team management and how to deal with someone who is underperforming, who may not have been advised that they are underperforming, how to manage that, what you would do, what steps you would take if you need to manage them out, those kind of things. Thank you. Yeah, it was tough. Oh, please go sleep. Go sleep. It was hot today. I don't know if you all had the heat wave on your side. It was super duper hot over here. So I think all of us are just like, you know, barely awake. Thank you for stopping by, Heather. Chantal. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for all the likes. You're so sweet. It was stunning, April. It was stunning over here. Absolute blue skies. I took a video. I went for a walk in the morning. I remembered that it was going to be hot, so I actually went and walked in the morning, and it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. But then it got really hot. My car, when I got in to go pick up the kiddos, it was at like 90 degrees in the fan. My mic is synced. The problem is, you know what? Hold on. Let me see if this will work. I'm gonna have to use the Bluetooth. Heather, what happened was on the, what do you call that bad boy? Streamlabs. Hey, thank you, Sanita. On Streamlabs, I've been kicked off of TikTok. I don't know why. I don't know what I did. But they don't have the TikTok option anymore. So I am doing the TikTok live on my phone, and then they just took away my access last week Monday. I don't know why. They just revoked it. I don't know. So it's off. And so I am doing the live. Exactly. Hold on. Okay. Here we go. Can you hear me a little bit better now? Is it better? I put in my Bluetooth earphones. I can't hear the music. I don't know what's going on. Okay, let me turn off the... That is so interesting. Let me turn off the music. I'm here. All right, the music is off. I don't have... Yeah, I turned the music off. Well, now I'm blocking the other people here. So part of the problem... part of the problem is that because my access is blocked for going... Thank you, Chantal. Because my access is blocked on whatchamacallit, Streamlabs, I'm doing like a simulcast on 2 different devices. It's only on Streamlabs that my phone comes through. So those who are on YouTube or on Twitch or Instagram, they can hear me through the mic, you know. So it's quite a bummer. I don't know what I did. I came on last week Monday, and it was like gone. And I emailed their support team, and they said TikTok has just been revoking access for some people. I don't know what I said. Maybe we got too spicy on our Thursday nights. Thank you, Chantal. Have a good night. So, I was fully aware, but Alyssa and Ashley egged me on. But I have a Discord server now. I don't know how to do anything on it, but there's a Discord server. There's a Discord server. I haven't looked at it since we set it up on Thursday. So if you would like to join the Discord server as a member of the PJs and Pages community, let me know. I don't get it. It's another piece of technology that I have to, sink my teeth into and learn how to use, because I'm not quite sure how to properly use it. But I got peer pressured, if you will, into creating one. Anyway, how are y'all doing? Did you have an good weekend? Was your weekend all right? Yeah. Let me grab the book. We at 10:30. I know Mondays are usually slow for us, so I want to get it quickly and then we can go. Oh, I signed up for. Sorry, my phone goes to sleep at. My phone gets rid of all the color at 10:30 to try and remind me to go to bed. I need to switch it because obviously I'm never going to bed at 10:30. So, helping a client clean up to sell a home. Oh wow, that's a task. How did it go? How did it go? Did you all manage to make a lot of to make a big improvement? Nice. Well done, Zanita. Oh, Alyssa, you got in there because your D&D game has a thread. Either nobody's been posting or I don't get it. Yeah, I think it's like a community that you manage. Like I feel like there has to be active management. I know there's a knitting one that I haven't joined yet, but I've heard of, and it seems like people do quite a bit on there, which is really cool, and one day, hopefully, I will understand it. I wanted to give a quick update on the book reading. I haven't done anything with it because, excuse me, the author is going to run a Kickstarter to raise funds to produce the audiobook. What I am doing now is trying to get ready. So I signed up for a webinar that will help me treat my space so that it's a little more, the sound is better, right? So that the sound is better for recording. So I'm either going to treat this little corner here where I do the reading, or I'm going to have to move a little of the yarn stuff downstairs. I'm going to move a little of the yarn stuff downstairs so that I can do that. That's my plan. So that's where I am. I bought the course. The guy is part of a private Facebook group of narrators that I joined, and so at least I will have access to asking questions. I'm hopeful that I can do that. But it's just been a whirlwind over here. Yeah. It's been a whirlwind over here. I've been cleaning because we have a family member coming to visit. They're coming to visit and they're going to be here for a couple of months. So trying to make looking at the guest room and thinking of how do we make it comfortable for a long-term stay. And my husband has to move out because the guest room is his office, so he's had to move out. Thankfully, I don't have to move out because I don't know what I'm going to do with all the yarn. From Ghana. They're coming from Ghana and they're going to stay with us for a little bit. We haven't seen them in a while. So it's really cool. I don't know, the yarn, that would have been... So he's easy. He's moving. He's moved. So he moved this morning and he's going to pick them up tomorrow. So it's like this whole weekend I've just been coordinating their fixes in the house. You know how you live with stuff when you live in the house, but then if somebody's coming to visit, you're all like, oh, I have to put my best foot forward. They can't see that we live a little raggedy over here. So that's what's been going on. Anyway, you're gonna have to put up a fake wall so they don't catch you with all that yarn. Exactly. Like at this point, I've given up. Hello, my name is Denise. I'm a yarn addict. Speaking of which, I went to Joann's today. And I might go to Joann's again. They only have big twists left, which I love for the knitting machine, but I don't know how much knitting I'm going to get done. I've barely knit in the past few days again because of all that. So Maria is here. Yay. Okay. I don't know if Donna's here, but we're going to have to start so I don't keep y'all too late. And so I can also, so the interview I had today, tomorrow I have another interview with another part of the team. And so I don't know, that will be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'll be the 6th interview. So I got a flash goal. What is the flash goal? What does that mean? Apparently I can start a flash goal. 3 gifters to send heart me to my live in 15 minutes. Okay, I've started it. send a heart me to this life. Anyway, welcome, friends. I'm so happy to see you. Happy Monday. Maria, you are amazing. Hey, what language does your family speak? I only know of Tree, but there's a few, right? Yeah, I speak Tree. Tree and Akan are used interchangeably. Akan is like a broader language group, but we normally say Akan because it's easier to pronounce than Tree. But yeah, Tree is what we speak. Yeah, there's so many more. We speak Ga as well. Ga is the language of the Greater Accra region, which is where the capital Accra is. Although I haven't been home in a while, and apparently they've changed the regions. And so I don't even know how many regions we have anymore. Regions are like states for us. I don't know how many regions we have and how they've all been divided. So, but I speak Tree and Ga. We have like, I checked, April, how many languages we find? Was it 80 something languages? Because April was asking me the same question. I went to Google it because I couldn't remember. But we have a lot of languages apparently for that little bitty country. So we stay talking. And so, hey, Stella is representing on YouTube. Hi. How are you? Yeah, I don't remember either. April, I'm gonna have to look at it. Yeah, I used to think 40 something, so I could be wrong. Anyway, after Lidali, today I found this blueberry sage stress relief tea with ashwagandha. I can't pronounce that word. Ashwagandha at Ross Dress for Less. My husband has been teasing me like, why are you buying food at Ross Dress for Less? But I got that ashwagandha tea, and that's what I'm drinking today. I'm hoping it's gonna make me super mellow and calm, and so. Alrighty, darlings. What are you all drinking? Ooh, I taste the blueberry. Yeah. What are y'all drinking? Toss it in the chat. Let's get some ideas, but I hope you're all doing okay. It is Monday. Mondays can take... I know, it actually tastes really good. I like it. It comes out. The flavor really pops out. I hope you are all doing well. I know Mondays can take a lot out of us, and the seasons are changing. If you have allergies, if it's going from cold to hot, I know that also messes with you, but I am happy to be here with you as usual. Stella is on the water kick. What are y'all on? Water with lemon essential oil. Zanita, I'm gonna have to try this water with lemon essential oil. Why the essential oil and not just the lemon slices? Because I know of lemon slices, but that's interesting. Well, share with your friends who you think might enjoy the story, but get comfy, get settled, and let us read The Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Chapter 4. Lottie. If Sara had been a different kind of child, the life she led at Miss Minchin's select seminary for the next few years would not have been at all good for her. She was treated more as if she were a distinguished guest at the establishment than as if she were a mere little girl. If she had been a self-opinionated, domineering child, she might have become disagreeable enough to be unbearable through being so much indulged and flattered. If she had been an indolent child, she would have learned nothing. Privately, Miss Minchin disliked her, but she was far too worldly a woman to do or say anything which might make such a desirable pupil wish to leave her school. She knew quite well that if Sara wrote to her papa to tell him she was uncomfortable or unhappy, Captain Crewe would remove her at once. Miss Minchin's opinion was that if a child were continually praised and never forbidden to do what she liked, she would be sure to be fond of the place where she was so treated. Accordingly, Sara was praised for her quickness at her lessons, for her good manners, for her amiability to her fellow pupils, for her generosity if she gave sixpence to a beggar out of her full little purse. The simplest thing she did was treated as if it were a virtue, and if she had not had a disposition and a clever little brain, she might have been a very self-satisfied young person. But the clever little brain told her a great many sensible and true things about herself and her circumstances, and now and then she talked these things over to Ermengarde as time went on. "Things happen to people by accident," she used to say. "A lot of nice accidents have happened to me. It just happened that I always liked lessons and books and could remember things when I learned them. It just happened that I was born with a father who was beautiful and nice and clever and could give me everything I liked. Perhaps I have not really a good temper at all, but if you have everything you want and everyone is kind to you, how can you help? I shall ever find out whether I am really a nice child or a horrid one. Perhaps I'm a hideous child, and no one will ever know just because I never have any trials." "Lavinia has no trials," said Ermengarde stolidly, "and she is horrid enough." Sara rubbed the end of her little nose reflectively as she thought the matter over. "Well," she said at last, perhaps that is because Lavinia is growing." This was the result of a charitable recollection of having heard Miss Amelia say that Lavinia was growing so fast that she believed it affected her health and temper. Lavinia, in fact, was spiteful. She was inordinately jealous of Sara. Until the new pupil's arrival, she had felt herself the leader in the school. She had led because she was capable of making herself extremely disagreeable if the others did not follow her. She domineered over the little children and assumed grand airs with those big enough to be her companions. She was rather pretty, and had been the best-dressed pupil in the procession when the select seminary walked out 2 by 2, until Sara's velvet coats and sable muffs appeared, combined with drooping ostrich feathers, and were led by Miss Minchin at the head of the line. This, at the beginning, had been bitter enough, but as time went on, it became apparent that Sara was the leader too, and not because she could make herself disagreeable, but because she never did. "There's one thing about Sara Crewe," Jessie had enraged her best friend by saying honestly. "She's never grand about herself the least bit, and you know she might be lavvy. I believe I couldn't help being, just a little, if I had so many fine things and was made such a fuss over. It's disgusting, the way Miss Minchin shows her off when parents come." "Dear Sara must come into the drawing-room and talk to Mrs. Musgrave about India," mimicked Lavinia, in her most highly flavoured imitation of Miss Minchin. "Dear Sara must speak French to Lady Pitkin. Her accent is so perfect." "She didn't learn her French at the seminary at any rate, and there's nothing so clever in her knowing it. She says herself she didn't learn it at all. She just picked it up because she always heard her papa speak it. And as to her papa, there is nothing so grand in being an Indian officer." "Well," said Jessie slowly, "he's killed tigers. He killed the one in the skin Sara has in her room. That's why she likes it so. She lies on it and strokes its head and talks to it as if it was a cat." "She's always doing something silly," snapped Lavinia. "My mamma says that way of hers of pretending things is silly. She says she will grow up eccentric." It was quite true that Sara was never grand. She was a friendly little soul, and shared her privileges and belongings with a free hand. The little ones, who were accustomed to being disdained and ordered out of the way by mature ladies aged 10 and 12, were never made to cry by this most envied of them all. She was a motherly young person, and when people fell down and scraped their knees, she ran and helped them up and patted them, or found in her pocket a bonbon or some other article of a soothing nature. She never pushed them out of her way or alluded to their years as a humiliation and a blot upon their small characters. "If you are 4, you are 4," she said severely to Lavinia on an occasion of her having, it must be confessed, slapped Lottie and called her a brat. "But you will be 5 next year, and 6 the year after that, and," opening large convicting eyes, "it takes 16 years to make you 20. "Dear me," said Lavinia, "how we can calculate." In fact, it was not to be denied that 16 and 4 made 20, and 20 was an age the most daring were scarcely bold enough to dream of. So, the younger children adored Sara. More than once she had been known to have a tea party made up of these despised ones in her own room, and Emily had been played with, and Emily's own tea service used, the one with cups which held quite a lot of much sweetened weak tea and had blue flowers on them. No one had seen such a very real doll's tea set before. From that afternoon, Sara was regarded as a goddess and queen by the entire alphabet class. Lottie Lair worshipped her to such an extent that if Sara had not been a motherly person, she would have found her tiresome. Lottie had been sent to school by a rather flighty young papa who could not imagine what else to do with her. Her young mother had died, and as the child had been treated like a favorite doll or a very spoiled pet monkey or lapdog ever since the first hour of her life, she was a very appalling little creature. When she wanted anything or did not want anything, she wept and howled, and as she always wanted the things she could not have and did not want the things that were best for her, her shrill little voice was usually to be heard uplifted in wails in one part of the house or another. Her strongest weapon was that, in some mysterious way, she had found out that a very small girl who had lost her mother was a person who ought to be pitied and made much of. She had probably heard some grown-up people talking her over in the early days after her mother's death, so it became her habit to make great use of this knowledge. The first time Sara took her in charge was one morning when, on passing a sitting room, she heard both Miss Minchin and Miss Amelia trying to suppress the angry wails of some child who, evidently, refused to be silenced. She refused so strenuously, indeed, that Miss Minchin was obliged to almost shout, in a stately and severe manner, to make herself heard. "What is she crying for?" she almost yelled. "Oh, Sara heard. "I haven't got any mamma." "Oh, Lottie," screamed Miss Amelia, "do stop, darling. Don't cry. Please don't." Lottie howled tempestuously. "Haven't got any mamma." "She ought to be whipped," Miss Minchin proclaimed. "You shall be whipped, you naughty child." Lottie wailed more loudly than ever. Miss Amelia began to cry. Miss Minchin's voice rose until it almost thundered. She ought to go into the room, because she had recently begun a friendly acquaintance with Lottie and might be able to quiet her. When Miss Minchin came out and saw her, she looked rather annoyed. She realized that her voice, as heard from inside the room, could not have sounded either dignified or amiable. "Oh, Sara!" she exclaimed, endeavoring to produce a suitable smile. "I stopped," explained Sara, "because I knew it was Lottie, and I thought, perhaps, just perhaps, I could make her quiet. May I try, Miss Minchin?" "If you can. You are a clever child," answered Miss Minchin, drawing in her mouth sharply. Then, seeing that Sara looked slightly chilled by her asperity, she changed her manner. "But you are clever in everything," she said in her approving way. "I dare say you can manage her. Go in." And she left her. When Sara entered the room, Lottie was lying upon the floor, screaming and kicking her small fat legs violently, and Miss Amelia was bending over her in consternation and despair, looking quite red and damp with heat. Lottie had always found, when in her own nursery at home, that kicking and screaming would always be quieted by any means she insisted on. Poor plump Miss Amelia was trying first one method and then another. "Poor darling," she said one moment, "I know you haven't any mamma. Poor—" Then in quite another tone, "If you don't stop, Lottie, I will shake you. Poor little angel. There, you wicked, bad, detestable child. I will smack you, I will." Sara went to them quietly. She did not know at all what she was going to do, but she had a vague inward conviction that it would be better not to say such different kinds of things quite so helplessly and excitedly. "Miss Amelia," she said in a low voice, "Miss Minchin says I may try to make her stop. May I?" Miss Amelia turned and looked at her hopelessly. "Oh, do you think you can?" she gasped. "I don't know whether I can," answered Sara, still in her half-whisper, "but I will try." Miss Amelia stumbled up from her knees with a heavy sigh, and Lottie's fat little legs kicked as hard as ever. "If you will steal out of the room," said Sara, "I will stay with her." "Oh, Sara," almost whimpered Miss Amelia, "we never had such a dreadful child before. I don't believe we can keep her." But she crept out of the room and was very much relieved to find an excuse for doing it. Sara stood by the howling, furious child for a few moments and looked down at her without saying anything. Then she sat down flat on the floor beside her and waited. Except for Lottie's angry screams, the room was quite quiet. This was a new state of affairs for little Miss Lay, who was accustomed, when she screamed, to hear other people protest and implore and command and coax by turns, to lie and kick and shriek, and find the only person near you not seeming to mind in the least attracted her attention. She opened her tight-shut streaming eyes to see who this person was, and it was only another little girl, but it was the one who owned Emily and all the nice things, and she was looking at her steadily and as if she was merely thinking. Having paused for a few seconds to find this out, Lottie thought she must begin again. But the quiet of the room and of Sara's odd, interested face made her first howl rather half-hearted. "I haven't any ma," she announced, but her voice was not so strong. Sara looked at her still more steadily, but with a sort of understanding in her eyes. "Neither have I," she said. This was so unexpected that it was astounding. Lottie actually dropped her legs, gave a wriggle, and lay and stared. A new idea will stop a crying child when nothing else will. Also, it was true that while Lottie disliked Miss Minchin, who was cross, and Miss Amelia, who was foolishly indulgent. She rather liked Sara, little as she knew her. She did not want to give up her grievance, but her thoughts were distracted from it. So she wriggled again, and after a sulky sob said, "Where is she?" Sara paused a moment, because she had been told that her mamma was in heaven. She had thought a great deal about the matter, and her thoughts had not been quite like those of other people. "She went to heaven," she said, "but I am sure she comes out sometimes to see me, though I don't see her. So does yours. Perhaps they can both see us now. Perhaps they are both in this room." Lottie sat bolt upright and looked about her. She was a pretty little curly-headed creature, and her round eyes were like wet forget-me-nots. If her mamma had seen her during the last half hour, she might not have thought her the kind of child who ought to be related to an angel. Sara went on talking. Perhaps some people might think that what she said was rather like a fairy story, but it was all so real to her own imagination that Lottie began to listen in spite of herself. She had been told that her mamma had wings and a crown, and she had been shown pictures of ladies in beautiful white nightgowns who were said to be angels. But Sara seemed to be telling a real story about a lovely country where real people were. "There are fields and fields of flowers," she said, forgetting herself, as usual, when she began, and talking rather as if she were in a dream. "Fields and fields of lilies, and when the soft wind blows over them, it wafts the scent of them into the air, and everybody always breathes it, because the soft wind is always blowing. And little children run about in the lily fields and gather armfuls of them, and laugh and make little wreaths. And the streets are shining, and people are never tired, however far they walk. They can float anywhere they like, and there are walls made of pearl and gold all round the city, but they are low enough for the people to go and lean on them and look down onto the earth and smile and send beautiful messages." Whatsoever story she had begun to tell, Lottie would, no doubt, have stopped crying and been fascinated into listening. But there was no denying that this story was prettier than most others. She dragged herself close to Sara and drank in every word until the end came, far too soon. When it did come, she was so sorry that she put up her lip ominously. "I want to go there," she cried. "I haven't any mamma in this school." Sara saw the danger signal and came out of her dream. She took hold of the chubby hand and pulled her close to her side with a coaxing little laugh. "I'll be your mamma," she said. "We will play that you are my little girl, and Emily shall be your sister." Lottie's dimples all began to show themselves. "Shall she?" she said. "Yes," answered Sara, jumping to her feet. "Let us go and tell her, and then I will wash your face and brush your hair." To which Lottie agreed quite cheerfully, and trotted out of the room and upstairs with her, without seeming even to remember that the whole of the last hour's tragedy had been caused by the fact that she had refused to be washed and brushed for lunch, and Miss Minchin had been called in to use her majestic authority. And from that time, Sara was an adopted mother. And that was chapter 4. We finished before 11. Dang. I like it. How is it? How did y'all find it? I know. It's so sweet. Frances Hodgson Burnett. She slays me with her stories. She's just killing me right now with her stories. So good. What do you think? Should we do another one? By the way, I'm so grateful to all of you. I have 109 subscribers on YouTube. Slowly but surely, we're going up. We're going up. Oh, Stella. Stella said this story is making me so sad already. It is sad but sweet, isn't it? I don't know what it is about Frances Hodgson Burnett. I should probably go read up about her. But she really does imbue her kids with some kind of innate emotional intelligence that is quite interesting. Yes, Maria. I do know. I think so. Okay, let's do this. Chapter 5 of The Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Of course, the greatest power Sara possessed, and the one which gained her even more followers than her luxuries and the fact that she was the show pupil, the power that Lavinia and certain other girls were most envious of, and at the same time most fascinated by in spite of themselves, was her power of telling stories and of making everything she talked about seem like a story, whether it was one or not. Anyone who has been at school with a teller of stories knows what the wonder means. How he or she is followed about and besought in a whisper to relate romances, how groups gather round and hang on the outskirts of the favored party in the hope of being allowed to join in and listen. Sara not only could tell stories, but she adored telling them. When she sat or stood in the midst of a circle and began to invent wonderful things, her green eyes grew big and shining, her cheeks flushed, and, without knowing that she was doing it, she began to act and made what she told lovely or alarming by the raising or dropping of her voice, the bend and sway of her slim body, and the dramatic movement of her hands. She forgot that she was talking to listening children. She saw and lived with the fairy folk, or the kings and queens and beautiful ladies whose adventures she was narrating. Sometimes, when she had finished her story, she was quite out of breath with excitement, and would lay her hand on her thin little quick-rising chest, and half laugh as if it were herself. "When I am telling it," she would say, "it doesn't seem as if it was only made up. It seems more real than you are, more real than the schoolroom. I feel as if I were all the people in the story, one after the other. It is queer." She had been at Miss Minchin's school about 2 years when, one foggy winter's afternoon, as she was getting out of her carriage, comfortably wrapped up in her warmest velvets and furs, and looking very much grander than she knew, she caught sight, as she crossed the pavement, of a dingy little figure standing on the area steps, and stretching its neck so that its wide open eyes might peer at her through the railings. Something in the eagerness and timidity of the smudgy face made her look at it, and when she looked, she smiled because it was her way to smile at people. But the owner of the smudgy face and the wide open eyes evidently was afraid that she ought not to have been caught looking at pupils of importance. She dodged out of sight like a jack-in-the-box and scurried back into the kitchen, disappearing so suddenly that, if she had not been such a poor little forlorn thing, Sara would have laughed in spite of herself. That very evening, as Sara was sitting in the midst of a group of listeners in a corner of the schoolroom telling one of her stories, the very same figure timidly entered the room, carrying a coal box much too heavy for her, and knelt down upon the hearthrug to replenish the fire and sweep up the ashes. She was cleaner than she had been when she peeped through the area railings, but she looked just as frightened. She was evidently afraid to look at the children or seem to be listening. She put on pieces of coal cautiously with her fingers so that she might make no disturbing noise, and she swept about the fire irons very softly. But Sara saw in 2 minutes that she was deeply interested in what was going on, and that she was doing her work slowly in the hope of catching a word here and there. And realizing this, she raised her voice and spoke more clearly. The mermaids swam softly about in the crystal green water and dragged after them a fishing net woven of deep-sea pearls, she said. The princess sat on the white rock and watched them. It was a wonderful story about a princess who was loved by a prince merman and went to live with him in shining caves under the sea. The small drudge before the grate swept the hearth once, and then swept it again. Having done it twice, she did it 3 times. And as she was doing it the 3rd time, the sound of the story so lured her to listen that she fell under the spell and actually forgot that she had no right to listen at all, and also forgot everything else. She sat down upon her heels as she knelt on the hearthrug, and the brush hung idly in her fingers. The voice of the storyteller went on and drew her with it into winding grottos under the sea, glowing with soft, clear blue light and paved with pure golden sands. Strange sea flowers and grasses waved about her, and far away faint singing and music echoed. The hearth-brush fell from the work-roughened hand, and Lavinia Herbert looked round. "That girl has been listening," she said. The culprit snatched up her brush and scrambled to her feet. She caught at the coal box and simply scuttled out of the room like a frightened rabbit. Sara felt rather hot-tempered. "I knew she was listening," she said. "Why shouldn't she?" Lavinia tossed her head with great elegance. "Well," she remarked, "I do not know whether your mamma would like you to tell stories to servant girls, but I know my mamma wouldn't like me to do it." "My mamma," said Sara, looking odd. "I don't believe she would mind in the least. She knows that stories belong to everybody." "I thought," retorted Lavinia in severe recollection, "that your mamma was dead. How can she know things?" "Do you think she doesn't know things?" said Sara in her stern little voice. Sometimes she had a rather stern little voice. "Sara's mamma knows everything," piped in Lottie. "So does my mamma, except Sara is my mamma at Miss Minchin's. My other one knows everything. The streets are shining, and there are fields and fields of lilies, and everybody gathers them. Sara tells me when she puts me to bed." "You wicked thing," said Lavinia, turning on Sara, "making fairy stories about heaven." "There are much more splendid stories in Revelation," returned Sara. "Just look and see. How do you know mine are fairy stories? But I can tell you, with a fine bit of unheavenly temper, you will never find out whether they are or not if you're not kinder to people than you are now. Come along, Lottie." And she marched out of the room, rather hoping that she might see the little servant again somewhere. But she found no trace of her when she got into the hall. "Who is that little girl who makes the fires?" she asked Mariette that night. Mariette broke forth into a flow of description. Ah, indeed, Mademoiselle Sara might well ask. She was a forlorn little thing who had just taken the place of scullery maid, though as to being scullery maid, she was everything else besides. She blacked boots and grates, and carried heavy coal scuttles up and downstairs, and scrubbed floors and cleaned windows, and was ordered about by everybody. She was 14 years old, but was so stunted in growth that she looked about 12. In truth, Mariette was sorry for her. She was so timid that if one chanced to speak to her, it appeared as if her poor frightened eyes would jump out of her head. "What is her name?" asked Sara, who had sat by the table, with her chin on her hands, as she listened absorbedly to the recital. Her name was Becky. Mariette heard everyone below stairs calling, "Becky, do this," and "Becky, do that," every 5 minutes in the day. Sara sat and looked into the fire, reflecting on Becky for some time after Mariette left her. She made up a story of which Becky was the ill-used heroine. She thought she looked as if she had never had quite enough to eat. Her very eyes were hungry. She hoped she could see her again, but though she caught sight of her carrying things up or downstairs on several occasions, she always seemed in such a hurry and so afraid of being seen that it was impossible to speak to her. But a few weeks later, on another foggy afternoon, when she entered her sitting room, she found herself confronting a rather pathetic picture. In her own special and pet easy chair before the bright fire, Becky, with a coal smudge on her nose and several on her apron, with her poor little cap hanging half off her head and an empty coal box on the floor near her, sat fast asleep, tired out beyond even the endurance of her hard-working young body. She had been sent up to put the bedrooms in order for the evening. There were a great many of them, and she had been running about all day. Sara's rooms she had saved until the last. They were not like the other rooms, which were plain and bare. Ordinary pupils were expected to be satisfied with mere necessaries. Sara's comfortable sitting room seemed a bower of luxury to the scullery maid, though it was, in fact, merely a nice bright room. But there were pictures and books in it, and curious things from India. There was a sofa and the low, soft chair. Emily sat in a chair of her own, with the air of a presiding goddess, and there was always a glowing fire and a polished grate. Becky saved it until the end of her afternoon's work, because it rested her to go into it, and she always hoped to snatch a few minutes to sit down in the soft chair and look about her, and think about the wonderful good fortune of the child who owned such surroundings, and who went out on the cold days in beautiful hats and coats one tried to catch a glimpse of through the area railing. On this afternoon, when she sat down, the sensation of relief to her short, aching legs had been so wonderful and delightful that it had seemed to soothe her whole body, and the glow of warmth and comfort from the fire had crept over her like a spell, until, as she looked at the red coals, a tired, slow smile stole over her smudged face. Her head nodded forward without her being aware of it, her eyes drooped, and she fell fast asleep. She had really been only about 10 minutes in the room when Sara entered, but she was in as deep a sleep as if she had been, like the Sleeping Beauty, slumbering for 100 years. But she did not look, poor Becky, like a Sleeping Beauty at all. She looked only like an ugly, stunted, worn-out little scullery drudge. Sara seemed as much unlike her as if she were a creature from another world. On this particular afternoon, she had been taking her dancing lesson, and the afternoon on which the dancing master appeared was rather a grand occasion at the seminary, though it occurred every week. The pupils were attired in their prettiest frocks, and as Sara danced particularly well, she was very much brought forward, and Mariette was requested to make her as diaphanous and fine as possible. Diaphanous is a beautiful word. Mouthfeel is 100%. Today, a frock the color of a rose had been put on her, and Mariette had bought some real buds and made her a wreath to wear on her black locks. She had been learning a new delightful dance in which she had been skimming and flying about the room like a large rose-colored butterfly, and the enjoyment and exercise had brought a brilliant happy glow into her face. When she entered the room, she floated in with a few of the butterfly steps, and there sat Becky, nodding her cap sideways off her head. "Oh," cried Sara softly when she saw her, "that poor thing." It did not occur to her to feel cross at finding her pet chair occupied by the small dingy figure. To tell the truth, she was quite glad to find it there. When the ill-used heroine of her story wakened, she could talk to her. She crept toward her quietly and stood looking at her. Becky gave a little snore. "I wish she'd waken herself," Sara said. "But I don't like to waken her. But Miss Minchin would be cross if she found out. I'll just wait a few minutes." She took a seat on the edge of the table and sat swinging her slim rose-colored legs and wondering what it would be best to do. Miss Emilia might come in at any moment, and if she did, Becky would be sure to be scolded. "But she is so tired," she thought. "She is so tired." A piece of flaming coal ended her perplexity for her that very moment. It broke off from a large lump and fell onto the fender. Becky started and opened her eyes with a frightened gasp. She did not know she had fallen asleep. She had only sat down for one moment and felt the beautiful glow. And here she found herself staring in wild alarm at the wonderful pupil, who sat perched quite near her like a rose-colored fairy with interested eyes. She sprang up and clutched at her cap. She felt it dangling over her ear and tried wildly to put it straight. Oh, she had got herself into trouble now with a vengeance. To have impudently fallen asleep on such a young lady's chair. She would be turned out of doors without wages. She made a sound like a big breathless sob. Oh, miss, she stuttered. "I ask your pardon, miss. Oh, I do, miss." Sara jumped down and came quite close to her. "Don't be frightened," she said, quite as if she had been speaking to a little girl like herself. "It doesn't matter the least bit." "I didn't go to do it, miss," protested Becky. "It was the warm fire and me being so tired. It wasn't impertinence." Sara broke into a friendly little laugh and put her hand on her shoulder. "You were tired," she said. "You could not help it. You are not really awake yet." How poor Becky stared at her. In fact, she had never heard such a nice, friendly sound in anyone's voice before. She was used to being ordered about and scolded and having her ears boxed. And this one, in her rose-colored dancing afternoon splendor, was looking at her as if she were not a culprit at all, as if she had a right to be tired, even to fall asleep. The touch of the soft, slim little paw on her shoulder was the most amazing thing she had ever known. Ain't you angry, miss?" she gasped. "Ain't you going to tell the missus?" "No," cried out Sara. "Of course I'm not." The woeful fright and the coal-smuttered face made her suddenly so sorry that she could scarcely bear it. One of her queer thoughts rushed into her mind. She put her hand against Becky's cheek. "Why," she said, "we are just the same. I am only a little girl like you. It's just an accident that I am not you and you are not me." Becky did not understand in the least. Her mind could not grasp such amazing thoughts, and an accident meant to her a calamity in which someone was run over or fell off a ladder and was carried to the hospital. "A accident, miss?" she fluttered respectfully. "Is it?" "Yes," Sara answered, and she looked at her dreamily for a moment. But the next, she spoke in a different tone. She realized that Becky did not know what she meant. "Have you done your work?" she asked. "Dare you stay here a few minutes?" Becky lost her breath again. "Here? Miss, me?" Sara ran to the door, opened it, and looked out and listened. "No one is anywhere about," she explained. "If your bedrooms are finished, perhaps you might stay a tiny while. I thought perhaps you might like a piece of cake." The next 10 minutes seemed to Becky like a sort of delirium. Sara opened a cupboard and gave her a thick slice of cake. She seemed to rejoice when it was devoured in hungry bites. She talked and asked questions and laughed until Becky's fears actually began to calm themselves, and she once or twice gathered boldness enough to ask a question or so herself, daring as she felt it to be. "Is that," she ventured, looking longingly at the rose-colored frock, and she asked it almost in a whisper, "Is that there your bust?" "It is one of my dancing frocks," answered Sara. "I like it, don't you?" For a few seconds, Becky was almost speechless with admiration. Then she said in an awed voice, "On't I see a princess? I was standing in the street with the crowd outside Covent Garden, watching the swells go into the opera, and there was one everyone stared at most. They says to each other, 'That's the princess.' She was a growed-up young lady, but she was pink all over, gown and cloak, and flowers and all. I called her to mind the minute I see you sitting there on the table, miss. You looked like her." "I've often thought," said Sara in her reflecting voice, "that I should like to be a princess. I wonder what it feels like. I believe I will begin pretending I am one." Becky stared at her admiringly and, as before, did not understand her in the least. She watched her with a sort of adoration. Very soon, Sara left her reflections and turned to her with a new question. "Becky," she said, "weren't you listening to that story?" "Yes, miss," confessed Becky, a little alarmed again. "I knowed I hadn't oughter, but it was that beautiful I couldn't help it." "I liked you to listen to it," said Sara. "If you tell stories, you like nothing so much as to tell them to people who want to listen. I don't know why it is. Would you like to hear the rest?" Becky lost her breath again. "Me hear it?" she cried, "like as if I was a pupil, miss, all about the prince and the little white mare babies swimming about laughing, with stars in their hair?" Sara nodded. "You haven't time to hear it now, I'm afraid," she said, "but if you will tell me just what time you come to do my rooms, I will try to be here and tell you a bit of it every day until it is finished. It's a lovely long one, and I'm always putting new bits to it." Okay, TikTok needs me to show that I'm still awake. Hold on. Oh. This is crazy. Okay. "Then," breathed Becky devoutly, "I wouldn't mind how heavy the coal boxes was, or what the cook done to me, if I might have to think of. If I might have that to think of." "You may," said Sara. "I'll tell it all to you." When Becky went downstairs, she was not the same Becky who had staggered up, loaded down by the weight of the coal scuttle. She had an extra piece of cake in her pocket, and she had been fed and warmed, but not only by cake and fire. Something else had warmed and fed her, and the something else was Sara. When she was gone, Sara sat on her favorite perch on the end of her table. Her feet were on a chair, her elbows on her knees, and her chin in her hands. "If I was a princess, a real princess," she murmured, "I could scatter largesse to the populace. But even if I am only a pretend princess, I can invent little things to do for people, things like this. She was just as happy as if it was largesse. I'll pretend that to do things people like is scattering largesse. I've scattered largesse." And that was chapter 5 of The Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I have to read up about this author because she really does imbue these kids with some uncanny level of social and emotional intelligence that I aspire to. My God. Hi, AC. Thank you. Welcome in. I see a few newbies. Maria, thank you for the crystal dreams. Am I a princess now? Am I? I saw you come in, Brock, and I think Chicana vibes. Oh, Julia, hey. It is good, but it is sad. I know. It was the same with Secret Garden. It's like just pulls you in. When was the book written? I do not know, but let me check. Because if they are taking ships from India and stuff, let's see. The Little Princess book. (1905). It was written in 1905. Wow, my colors today look like I'm like on some island vacation. But yes, that was wonderful. That was lovely. I'm glad we were able to get through 2 chapters. I am going to go off right now. You can tell. I know, you can tell, but it's so sweet. I love it. I love how she writes. I have to read up. I feel like, let me go into Wikipedia and see if I can read a little bit about the author, because the way she writes, I think, you're welcome. A lot of authors that are writing about kids almost seem to, or writing from the viewpoint of kids, so writing about and from the viewpoint of kids, seem to only focus on the surface characteristics of the kids, right? It's a good kid, they wanted to play, they were shouting, but not this kind of, this kid was intelligent. What was his name? Dixon. Was it Dixon? Was his name Dixon? And Secret Garden was intelligent, right? Mary was intelligent, even though she was a whiny little brat at the beginning. There's this sense of wisdom and the ease with which the kids accept change and try to change. It's definitely a lesson that we adults can pick from it, because we definitely get a little calcified in our thinking and in our approach to life. So they take to things. It's absolutely, yes, AC, exactly. It's so refreshing, and I think it tugs at the heart, or at least it tugs at my heart, because I'm like, oh yeah, I used to be a little like that, and life felt a little bit more manageable when you approach it that way, So, hey, Louis, how are you? And so it's just really, really lovely. I enjoy her writing. I don't know what other books she has, but She's known for for three children's books. Little Lord Fauntleroy. Was it Fauntleroy? Fauntleroy. I don't know. A Little Princess in the Secret Garden. Okay, so the first one, Little Lord Fauntleroy, was from 1886. Then came A Little Princess. Then came A Secret Garden. Wow. Yeah. Okay, this lady, the story takes place in 1899. Okay, this lady she's Bay. Okay, hold on. She was born in is it Cheetham or Chatham, Manchester, England. Her father died in 1853. The family fell on strange circumstances, and so in 1865 they moved to the U.S. They settled in Newmarket, Tennessee. She began her writing career there at age 19 to help earn money for the family, publishing stories in magazines. In 1870, her mother died. So in 1873, she married Swan Burnett, who became a medical doctor. They had some kids. They lived for 2 years in Paris, where their second son, Vivian, was born. Then they returned to DC. She then began to write novels, the first of which, That Last O'Larry's, was published to good reviews. Little Lord Fauntleroy was published in 1886 and made her a popular writer of children's fiction. Although she also has romantic adult stories written in the 1890s, which were also popular. So we might have to find 10K likes. Y'all are so sweet. Thank you. She wrote adult novels. We might have to find some of her among. Hey, Samantha, how are you? She began to travel to England frequently, and that's when she wrote The Secret Garden. She bought a home there. She divorced her husband in 1898, married Stephen Townsend in 1900, and divorced him in 1902. A few years later, she settled in Nassau County, New York, where she died in 1924 and is buried in Roseland Cemetery. What a life. What a life, right? So she wrote to help her family out at 19. Oh my God. She's Bay. She's Bay. Apparently in 1936, a memorial sculpture by Bessie Potter Vonner was erected in her honor in Central Park's Conservatory Garden. The statue depicts her two famous Secret Garden characters, Mary and Dickon. Right, she got 2 divorces at the time, so that's what I'm saying. She's Bay. Like, she was like, nah, cannot. I cannot. I mean, she started earning for her family at 19, so she'd been, you know, she'd had to stand on her own legs, her own 2 legs for a while. I'm trying to do the quick math. She got married in 1873, and she was born in 49. Let's see. So she was 24. She was 24 when she got married, and when she divorced him, 98. They were married for a while. They were married for 25 years. So it wasn't like anyway. The reasons people end up divorcing are myriad, so, but what a woman. I love her stories. Oh, Donna. Hey. Donna is on the tube. What? No worries. I hope you were able to at least catch part of the stories, because we did 2 chapters today. I'm gonna go off. I know I tend to jabber. I keep mixing words. I mean gab and jabber, and it becomes gabber. I'm gonna go off. I was starting to edit the first chapter we read last week when I had to help, make up the guest room and do like a final check. So I'm gonna go off right now. Oh, you wonder if any of her other books are movies as well. It's possible. It's possible. It is quite possible. But I also have some lemon chicken in the fridge. So I'm going to warm up some lemon chicken and I'm going to come edit the videos. I'll see if I can upload the full version. I think I'm only going to be uploading the full versions on YouTube. So I will upload snippets on the vertical format social media and then point people to YouTube to listen to the full thing. I think that will cut down on how much time I have to spend. What's my knitting account? Nisi Knits. Same, Nisi Knits. I'm very boring. Nisi reads. Nisi Knits. Oh my god, you just reminded me. I haven't knit in so long. Oh, I feel like it's so bad. I haven't knit in so long. I feel out of it. But I did tidy up my room, and so I'll take it. I will take it. Anyway, darlings, I'd love to read some of her romance novels in the future. I'll have to lobby with some of y'all on that. Yeah, find them, Stella, and start lobbying. I'm sure I don't think Maria and Alyssa will be bad targets to start with. Get Alyssa and Maria on it. They might be easy sells. Night, Brock. Have a great day at school, yeah? I didn't get to ask you how school went today, if you had any classes or whatever, but wait, what did you do? Well, Stella wants to find some of the romance novels written by Frances Hodgson Burnett so we can read them. But Stella is not a DAPS member yet. And so she wants to lobby one of the DAPS members. And I'm nominating you and Maria. I said she should work on the two of you. Oh, Lord. But yes, I do have a Discord if you want to keep chatting with some of the other members of the PJs and Pages community. School is long and I'm sleepy, but notice you were live, so I had to watch. Oh, darling. You're too kind. You're too sweet. I'm so sorry that my time is so late for you all. It's incredibly difficult to get an earlier time because family and, kid obligations. But yeah, that's an easy sell. Stella, Alyssa said it's an easy sell, so just get her. Get to her. But yes, please get some rest. All the best at school tomorrow, and I'll see you when you come. Ooh, Miss Shannon is here. Hi. Miss Shannon is another awesome narrator here. Oh, Zanita, thank you. Get some rest. We made it before midnight today, so go. I was going to make it to bed before midnight, but I might fail. We'll see. All-time fave, Huck Finn. Oh, really? That one was a tough read. That one was a tough read, Alyssa. I felt like every other minute I was going to say the N-word. I felt like every other minute there was an N-word trap somewhere or some other slur that I was not prepared for, right? We did, Brock. We finished Emma Tuesday. Last Tuesday, yeah. So we started this one on Wednesday. So it was like there was a trap everywhere. And then the stories were so fantastical that I just could not even figure out how to modulate my emotions, right? The stuff that Huck and what was the name of the slave man? The shenanigans they got into, especially when they met those two con men. Oh Lord, I couldn't. Jim, I couldn't. Oh, you know what? Julia is asking Stella what kinds of books they like reading. That's a good question. What kind of stories do you all like to read? Like, what are you all reading right now? I know I come in and I read the book to you all, but what other books are you all reading outside of this? I know Brock is reading a lot of school stuff, but what other books are you all reading outside of this? Do you read only one book at a time? Parable of the Sower. Good one. Is that the one by Octavia Butler? Let me type and see. Oh, I meant to join on my reading account and completely forgot. On my knitting account, I mean. Parable of the Sower. Let's see. I have so many books in my queue and also in my borrow list right now. Yes, Octavia. Currently rereading Fahrenheit 451. I've heard of that one. I feel like I borrowed it, but I never listened. You watch more than you read. Lisa, come on. Get on the audiobook kick, sis. Like, you know how it goes. I have so many. I usually have not a romance. I have multiple romance stories, but I like different ones. Like right now, I don't have any historical romance books. Not because I don't want to look for them, but my sister reads a lot more of those, and if she finds a good one, she tells me, and then usually it's a series, so then I just go down that rabbit hole and read all of them. But I've been reading this Christmas and Notch series, which is a contemporary romance, and I've read like four out of the 5 or 6 of them. And then I like Ali Hazelwood, so I saw that there was one of her books. It's called Two Can Play That Game, and it's like a shorter book. It's 4 hours. The audiobook is 4 hours. So I'm like, yes, I'm gonna give myself like a little, it feels like a little treat to do a 4-hour romantic book. So that's what I'm reading right now. I'm also still listening to The Heat Will Kill You First, which is a book about global warming and heat, and how most people think about the cold. They don't think about the fact that because the earth is warming up, we might die from heat first. I'm also trying to listen to There. I've forgotten the name of that book. There. And I also started that book that about the Native American tribe whose land was taken, that Leonardo DiCaprio just starred in that movie. I don't know what the name. Let me see what the name of that book is. I have about 20 books in my, let me see, Leonardo DiCaprio. Let's see. I have to go find his. Yeah. So I read very wide. I read very widely. You know. Oh well. Well. Let me head on to bed. Thank you so much for hanging with me. I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully. Have a lovely evening, get some rest, and have a wonderful day tomorrow. Bye.